Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're back in my finished artwork sketchbook. It's been a long time since you guys have seen this one. I don't do finished art very often, but I was having some thoughts about my finished work, and I was thinking, you think way too hard about things, basically. And you're overthinking things so much that you end up doing nothing. And so instead of allowing myself to overthink and being like, every time I make a finished artwork, it should be like super nice and detailed and take me a long time, I was like, what if I just stuck with things that are a bit more simple? This is something I'm coming to terms with, but I think I have a very simple design philosophy and a very simple way of drawing characters. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's maybe something I should probably lean into a little bit more. And I feel like just because drawing is simple doesn't mean that it doesn't have things that are like interesting about it. So I was like, what's a way that I can keep things simple but also make them interesting? So the very first thing I did was I drew this piece of my character Cole. And like I said, it's very simple. I just wanted to draw him from, basically, it's like the camera's looking down at him. So that's what the angle is right here. And I wanted him to have like these L's. He's like holding up the loser sign to like the camera or like the viewer, I guess. So yeah, it's very simple drawing. Originally he had his glasses because he does wear glasses, but I was like, I don't want to draw his glasses. I feel like it covers up his eyes and it really messes with his expression. And so I was like, we'll just keep the glasses off. And I feel like it looks better because of that. And basically what the whole point of this drawing is that I wanted to do something a little bit more dynamic with lighting. And so the reference picture I took a reference of myself, and when I was looking at the reference of myself, I was like, okay, the lighting here looks pretty good. And so I just decided to replicate that as best as I could. Obviously it's not exactly 1-to-1 because in the reference photo I'm holding the camera and that's where the shadow is coming from across my face and stuff, and I only have one of the hands up in the L shape because I couldn't take a picture and hold up two L's, but it was fine. Basically overall I think it turned out okay. So I kind of had to fudge some of the shadows on here, but it was okay. But basically what I wanted to do was I wanted to make a very strong lighting type situation, and I really wanted to map out the shadows very like I wanted them to be very distinct from the light source. And so what I decided I wanted to do is I wanted to use two different colors, and I wanted to use only two colors for the drawing, and I wanted them to be on opposite sides of the color wheel. And so I was kind of trying to pick and choose which ones I wanted to do, and I was like pink, I was like green and red, and I was like no, and I was like blue and yellow, and I was like no, and I was like I guess I can do pink and green, but I kept the colors pretty pastel, and so they're technically the same saturation, like the same value, but the difference is in the color, right? It's not a difference in value that creates the shadow, like the effect of light and shadow. It's just it's the difference in the color that differentiates between light and the shadow, not like the value of the color, if that makes sense. And so they're pretty much the same value. I feel like if I turned it black and white, the whole thing would probably just be gray, but I wanted to play more with the color than I wanted to do with like actual shadows, if that makes sense. And so I only used two markers for this whole drawing. I was thinking for a while, I was like, well, maybe I'll add like a deeper color to like the edge of the shadows, because that's typically what happens with shadows. The edges are a little bit darker and then kind of fades out a little bit. But I was like, I really don't want to do that, because the second darkest shadow, the darkest color after this one is actually pretty different from the green. And so I was like, I don't want to do that because it's going to be all this blending and stuff. And I don't think it's going to be like a nice blend, just because the size of the picture is so large. It is an 8.5 by 11, which is kind of big, especially for flat colors for marker. When you get bigger, it's really hard to get flat colors for marker, especially like 8.5 by 11. Anything bigger than that, I'm like, I don't know how people could possibly get a flat layer. It would take a long time. It'd take a lot of ink too. So, and the pens were the markers were especially running out of ink, even with just this size of drawing. But yeah, so I decided not to do that. I just wanted to use the two colors. So I would say that this video might not be super interesting because it's just me laying in flat color, but did my best to keep things really thought out and really planning before I put color down. I cut the parts out where you see me sketching in the shadow lines with pencil. I just felt like that maybe that would be a little bit boring, but every time I was like, I'm not sure where I want to place this shadow. I looked back at the reference and I was like, okay, this is pretty much where the shadow is, and I sketched it in first before going in with the marker. I just wanted to be very deliberate, and I wanted to make sure that I was putting strokes down where I wanted them to go and just being very intentional with everything that I did. Unfortunately, because of that, though, I don't really have too much to say about this piece. You know what is so funny? For a long time, I was like, I have so much to say about my art. I should make a YouTube channel because I have so much to say. And then now that I have a YouTube channel and I make art, I'm like, I don't really have that much to say anymore. I guess because I really didn't put too much thought into this drawing. It's just a drawing of my character making a silly face. Before, I felt like I would put a little bit more thought into things and like make deliberate color choices and stuff. And not to say that these color choices are not deliberate. Like I said, I did pick these two colors. One because I do like pink and green a lot. I think they're very cute, but together. But also, I picked them because they're on opposite sides of the color wheel, and so I thought the difference of that, the contrast of that, would help them stand out as shadows and stuff against each other, as light and shadow against each other. But other than that, I'm not really sure if I have too much to say about it. I spent some time thinking about how I wanted to do the eyes. Actually, trying to figure out the eyes took me a long time because in the reference photo, my eyes are a lot more closed than his are. Than in this photo, just because when you make that sort of face where you open your mouth a lot and you kind of like smile, your eyes tend to close, or at least mine do anyway. When you smile, your eyes close. Everybody knows that. But his eyes are actually not that closed, and the way that he's smiling, his eyes should be a lot more closed. I feel like that would actually help his expression a little bit, but I wasn't looking really at the reference when I was sketching this out. I was more looking at the reference when I took the reference for for posing his hand, but I had already drawn the face after I posed his hand, so I wasn't really looking at the face. And then after I finished sketching it and lining it, I did look at the reference for the shadows, and so the expression is not really super referenced, so it's a little bit messed up, but that's okay. Also, I changed the way that I did line art. I guess I could talk about that. Usually when I do line art, I try to do it as smooth as possible, just because, I don't know, habit, and I feel like that's what other people do. They try to make smooth line art and stuff, and I've seen other people do like sketchy line art, and I've not really ever been a fan of super sketchy line art. Just personally, I think it looks messy. Not for other people. I think when other people do sketchy line art, I think it looks great. But when I ever do it, it feels like really unintentional and really doesn't make much sense to me. But for this drawing, I decided to do something a little bit different. So instead of trying to make things in like one solid line like I usually do, and then just adding some like sort of kind of line variation where I feel like shadows are falling, I kind of took a hatching sort of approach where I would like use like 3 strokes right next to each other, and then I would move down and make 3 short strokes. And so it's kind of like really scratchy and kind of chicken scratchy, but I'm hoping it looks sort of chicken scratchy in a way that is intentional and not in a way where it looks like I just don't know how to do line art. You guys can let me know if I succeeded. I feel like in some places it looks kind of nice, and I feel like it maybe looks a little bit better in person than it does on camera. But the reason I did that is because I was doing his eyes, and when I was sketching his eyes, I had a lot of lines to like help convey like the sort of expression he was having. And I was like, I don't really want to lose those. I feel like it adds sort of a lot to his expression. And so I did the eyes first, and I was like, well, what if I did just the whole drawing like that? And I don't know if I like it per se. I don't think I'm going to turn this into like my style of doing line art, just because it does look kind of messy in a way that maybe I don't like too much. I think it looks okay. But the more I look at it, I'm like, maybe I should have just done regular line art the way that I usually do it. But it's okay. I like it in person. I actually really like the drawing a lot. I know I have a tendency to be like, oh, all my art sucks, but I actually do like this one a lot. And after I finished it, I kind of just stared at it for a long time, and I was like, this is really nice. And I think the reason why I started staring at it is because especially when I like a drawing, I try to stare at it, I think, for a long time, just so I can find a flaw in it. And I think that's really bad for your mentality. But yeah, I stared at it for a long time, trying to be like, yeah, there's parts of this that must be bad. But I was staring at it, and I was like, no, I don't think so. I mean, obviously the hands could be better and stuff. But overall, I was like, I feel like the way that I did the coloring, I feel like it looks really cool and dynamic. It's just interesting, I think. And so I think I succeeded in my goal of trying to find like a simplistic way of drawing, but also, drawing attention in some way. So yeah, I think it turned out really well. I struggled a little bit with the shadows for some areas, like for the eyes, since like I was saying earlier, the eyes are actually not all the way closed. I had to figure out a way that I wanted to shade the eyes, because I was like, do I want to just make one eye all the way green and then make the other eye all the way pink? And I was like, I don't actually think I want to do that. I don't want to do that because even if your eye is in like shadow, I feel like there's still like some shadow from where your eyelid falls, I think, a little bit. Probably not, but I don't know. I didn't have a reference, so I might be completely wrong. But what I ended up doing is doing a little bit of a two-tone thing where just underneath the eyelid, I put the shadow color, and then the rest of the eye, it's like the pink color. So for both eyes, it's like that. And honestly, I feel like that's probably wrong. I feel like the eye that's in the in the shadow should probably all be green, and then maybe the green and the pink should only be on the eye that's on the light side. But it's too late to fix it now. I mean, I probably could just go back and color over it, but I do, like I said, I do like the way it turns out, so I don't actually feel any particular way about that. And then I had to do the mouth, and I was really struggling for what I wanted to do with the mouth, because I was like, well, half of the mouth is in shadow and the other half of the mouth is in the light, so I'm like, what am I supposed to do with the teeth? I didn't really have any like qualms about doing like the inside of the mouth, because I'm like, that's all in shadow anyway. But I was like, the teeth, do I just like do half and half? And I was like, no, this is not right. That's not right at all. And in the reference, even though the face was in shadow, I was looking at I was trying to figure out the reference, and for what I was looking at, what I saw was basically like the top of the teeth where that were underneath the lip, that were covered by the lip, those had shadow, and then the rest of the teeth were hitting the light, were getting hit by light. So that's what I ended up doing, and I was like, I don't know if this looks right. I don't actually know if this is correct, but I feel like it looks okay. At first when I was doing it, I was like, no, I fucked it up. I fucked up the teeth. The teeth look weird. But by the end, by the time everything was all colored, I was like, actually the teeth don't look that bad. And then I did something a little bit different with the tongue. There actually was not a lot of shadow on the tongue for the references that I was taking, but I decided that I was going to add some shadow to the tongue, even though it's not right at all. I was just like, I feel like it'd look a little bit better if I add shadow to the tongue, just having the whole tongue stick out and just the whole thing be pink. I was like, I don't think that's really what I want going for it. So that's what I ended up doing for the tongue. And then for a while I was like, do I want to leave the background as white? And I was like, I don't know. And so I was staring at it for a while, and I was like, no, I think I'll fill it in with a green, because then it looks like he's like in the shadow, and maybe I should have made like half of the background pink and then half of the background green. But I was like, so much of his shirt is the pink color, because so much of my shirt in reference was being hit by light. So I was like, and I just made the whole background dark, which was not accurate to the photo at all. But I was like, I think it's fine the way that I fudge it, because I feel like if I just left the background right, it kind of felt a little bit incomplete. Kind of ended up just being like, well, whatever, fuck it, it's fine. Let's just color the whole thing in. I mean, it's not going to look worse. So that's what I ended up doing. And that's pretty much all I did for the drawing, you guys. I added some white to the eyes. I kept like the pupil white, just because that's typically what I like to do, is have some white for the pupil. And he has a very distinct way of drawing the eyes. He has a very distinct pupil, and so I didn't want to get rid of that. So I left his pupil in there, and then I added some highlights under the eyes, and then in the eyes. But I feel like you can't really see it at all, which is unusual for me. I feel like whenever I draw like the white under the eye, I think it stands out a lot. I don't know if maybe that pen or the paint pen that I use is just like I had to shake it up more, or if maybe it's just gotten old and so the paint is not as opaque as it used to be, but it doesn't stand out at all. It's like you don't even really notice it. But I was like, it's fine. That doesn't really matter. It doesn't really take away from the piece. I mean, you just don't notice it. So yeah, that's pretty much all I ended up doing, you guys. I do kind of feel like I want to do more of these. There are only so many color combinations, but I feel like the next one I probably was going to do will probably be yellow and blue. I just have to get some yellows and blues that are kind of the same tone for Copic markers, or like the same value for Copic markers, just so I can pull off the same thing. But yeah, I think it could turn out really cute. I just have to be careful with the yellow and blue, because if they touch each other, they're going to be green, and I really don't want them to turn green. I want to keep the shadows very distinct and separated. Like that's just supposed to be like, make it seem like it's like a very harsh shadow, very harsh light and shadow. And so I'm not sure yet. And so the combinations I feel like I want to do next are I say I'm going to do the yellow and blue one next if I ever end up doing this again. But I really wanted to do purple and orange. Or sorry, that's wrong. It's orange and blue. I want to do orange and blue and then purple and yellow. And so I really wanted to do the orange and blue one next. But my orange marker is fucking dead. And every time I try to use it, it's like I'm dead. And I'm like, fuck, I keep forgetting to buy refills. And so I really need refills for some of my markers. I know I made a video like 3 months ago refilling all my markers. And I think that one was on there. And I always thought that I had a refill for this marker, but I must not have it, because every time I try to use it, I'm like, where is the refill for this? And I can never find it. But yeah, I really want to do one that's orange and blue. So I really won't have to worry about it becoming green, but I don't know. I'm hoping I can do it in the future. This was really simple. The coloring took me a really long time, just because it's like adding so much color with markers to like a big space, and so that takes for fucking ever. And I did take a little bit of time planning out some of the smaller shadows, but it didn't, in like contrast to how long some of my other finished pieces take, it didn't really take that long, because the sketch only took me like 10-15 minutes. So I'm probably going to get back into doing a little bit more simple drawings for finished sketches. I do have one sketch that I'm working on that's not simple at all, and it was taking me forever to finish it because I was like, oh, I gotta make her look nice. It's gonna be in like another Medusa sketch, but I had to draw snakes, and I was like, I'm gonna challenge myself this time. I'm actually gonna draw the snakes, and that's not true, you guys. I'm like, what if I just finished this drawing and left the snakes as like little simple snakes? And you know what? I think I might do that, but I went a little bit less lazy with it because the shape of the snake's heads is kind of what's the issue, and they don't really have like a separation between their mouths and like the rest of their head. I feel like that's the part that makes it a little bit unbelievable. It's like also because the drawing, I don't do like semi-realism or something. I do like very cartoony style. Well, not cartoony, but like I guess anime-esque style. It's not realistic at all, but just the way that I do it, I feel like there's like a lot of detail and stuff in the face, and then I try to do like snakes, and the snakes look silly and derpy, and I'm like, that doesn't really fit the rest of the tone of the drawing. And so I just gotta figure out a way to like put a little bit more effort into stuff like that. I just want to be able to figure out a way to draw snakes where that they look like snakes, but they're not super duper complicated. I'm not trying to draw like fully realistic snakes. I'm not interested in that at all. And some people I know, they're like, you gotta do things realistically, and that way you can learn how to draw it, and then you can simplify it. And it's like, I kind of want to just skip that step. I just want to know how to simplify stuff. I don't want to draw things that are super complicated. I want to draw things that are pretty simple, and so I got to figure out a way to simplify snakes in a way that they don't look silly, that they can still look a little bit scary. So not that the drawing the Medusa I'm doing currently is scary. I'd say she's more like indie fashionista type person. You guys you'll see it if I ever finish it, but that one I want it to be like in full color, not like this sort of block shadow style, just because it's been a while since I fully colored a piece, and I really need to practice my coloring. I'm not great at it. Like I said, this is only 2 drawings. This is only 2 colors, and so I kept it really simple. But I did my best. But we're coming up to the end of the video, guys. You're gonna see me adding the white highlights. Adding the background color was a fucking pain and a half. That shit took forever. And this video is sped up. But I was like, I don't know if I'm getting it as flat as I want it to be. When I was working on this drawing, both of the markers kept dying on me. And I was like, I kept stopping in between filling in color to like fill in, to add more ink to each of them. And I was like, what the fuck? Why are they drying out so fast? But I actually am very low on refills for both of those because I really do like to color in pink, and I really do like to color in green. I say my favorite colors are green and orange, but I think that pink is probably in the top 3. It's been creeping up on me over the last few years, so I really have to get refills for some of my drawings. Not my drawings, for some of my markers. I'm running out of stuff, but yeah, that's the end of the video, guys. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I will go ahead and see you in the next one. Bye.